Hello and welcome to, I almost said Velocities in Music.
I was thinking that. I was actually thinking you were going to say that because I was just thinking about it. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Hello and welcome to Unwarranted Music Opinions, the show in which a whole host of music nerds spew out their musical opinions all over each other. It's a long, arduous process, but everyone comes out more or less a better person.
Ew.
I'm June Lindberg here with Brian Courtney.
Hello.
And Chaz Jenkins.
What you say? That's
And the dynamic duo of Tom Hummer and Jake Jackson of Velocities In Music.
Hello.
Hello.
I think we can finally... You can pass down the title of the best kept secret in music reviews to us now because
Can you?
because you're a little less, your secret's kind of out there at this point, but we're still.
Tom, can you give me the
trying.
login for the YouTube of Velocities Music? We'll take it from here. We got it.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It's all yours. And you all are the best kept secret now. Like, it can't be us anymore.
All right.
It's less like passing a torch and more like handing us the torch as we just burn it down to like a match. Like, this is just we are not great successors.
You
know?
can't get any more obscure than Unwarranted Music Opinions.
I look at
so
their like
here
16,000
we
plus subscribers, and I look at our measly 45, and I'm like, damn, what could have been? Like
Let's,
always, we're going to kick it off with the guest pick, which is technically Tom, so I don't know how Jake plays in all this, but Tom, if you want to kick it off.
I'll kick it off. I will hand it over to Jake. I'll hand it over to you once I give my little brain dump, or should I say Brainiac dump here. So we're busting out the puns already. All right. So the album that I picked for today is Brainiac's 1996 LP, Hissing Prigs in Static Couture. The album sounds about as nonsensical as the title does. And I'm going to be completely honest. I'm going to wear my badge of shame here and admit that I heard about this album from Pitchfork. I was bored at work several years ago, needed some new stuff to listen to, and so I started listening through their like best of the decades lists, and there are a couple of Brainiac albums on there. And I got to this one, and it really grabbed my attention. It was one I kept coming back to. This was about 6 years ago. And I feel like, Jake, you'll probably agree with me. June, Chaz, Brian, you'll probably agree with me too. When you listen to this much music this fanatically, as we all do, it becomes much harder for certain albums to really cut through the noise and make you want to come back to them. Doesn't mean that we value music any less. It just means that like there's more competition, there's more music rattling around in my brain at any given point, and it takes a lot to really make a mark on you. And this album made a mark on me, and I've come back to it regularly over the last 6 years. It's been kind of an obsession of mine because I feel like in a world where every rock format band, guitar, bass, drums, vocals, sounds somewhat similar or very similar to some other band, I can't pin what this band really sounds like. And I love that. Like, they're raucous, they're noisy, they've got Beefheart level guitar dissonance, but it's all in this like clangy post-hardcore 90s alternative grating rock sound. And I just find that even with such an abrasive sound and so many effects going on that just kind of make your head spin, they still are somehow able to make really catchy rock tunes. And so Hissing Prigs and Static Couture is one I keep coming back to because I just love every song. A lot of the melodies stick with me. Somehow, even when they're hardly identifiable vocal melodies, like they're hooky, even though the vocal parts make no sense and are masked in layers of pitch shift and delay and stereo panning and all kinds of craziness. There's just an energy to this that's really infectious to me. In terms of sound, like the close, I don't even know who to compare this to. There are elements in like the frantic manic vocals that kind of remind me of like Frank Black from the Pixies, but like taken to a whole new level with the effects that are used. The instrumentals sometimes kind of remind me of like Fugazi a little bit, the big room sound and energy, but it's not quite that either. So
well, I kind of got Jesus Lizard a little bit. Did you get any Jesus? Like, and especially like, and I was thinking Oh yeah, the guttural sort of guitar sound and the drums that kind of push through all the noise. And I was like, damn, these drums sound really good. I wonder who produced them. Look out, and it's Steve Albini who also produced the drums or recorded the drums for, the Jesus Lizards records back then. So definitely some kind of parallel there. Although you're right in that the effects that they choose and this isn't just a Jesus Lizard record with a different vocalist. This is it's its own thing for sure.
So the best way I could describe it, and this is coming from someone who's nowhere near on the pedigree June or Jake or Tom are at, but I think you'd still agree, this reminds me of God Ween Satan, early Ween, but doing post-punk. That's how I would describe. So it's not like catchy psychedelic rock or crazy noise rock. It's pure post-punk, but with like a Ween lens on it. So like the vocal performances, I just kept coming. I was like, this sounds like God Ween Satan. The level of shrieking and iron throat levels of just yelling. And dead ass, Rob Paulson is like a spirit animal on this. And if you those who don't know who Rob Paulson is, he voices Carl Weezer from Jimmy Neutron and Pinky from Pinky and the Brain. I mean, there's some songs when he screeches like, it sounds like Carl Weezer. Like dead ass sounds like Jimmy. I'm serious. It's crazy. But if I could stamp on a sound, that's like the closest thing I could think of.
You also get maybe a little bit of Residence vibes.
That's
just
I
like
was
the vocals
waiting
and the effects that are being used here.
Yeah, this is the closest thing I could compare it to is the Residents. I've never heard something quite as strange since the Residents, like in terms of like vocal style and just the like Tom was saying, like the word dissonance being thrown around. But I think despite like all these noisy and chaotic and really strange elements, it actually comes together in a way that's like super dancey. And this is like very much one of the few albums that is in this very specific lane of like really danceable, noisy, and like art punk. Like the only other band I can think of the only other band I can think of that kind of has this sound is like a Tropical Fuckstorm with like these really strange, and they're a little more psychedelic than Brainiac, but just elements that come together in an unexpectedly dancey or catchy way. What do you think, Jake?
I think that what makes this album so special is really how high quality the songwriting is, because while you hear that really the shrieks and the vocals and the distortion and just how loud they're playing every instrument and how overproduced or underproduced everything is, it's in the red the entire time. For me, all these songs were catchy. I kept coming back to it and I kept hearing melodies that I didn't hear before. It almost like, while my first blush of this sound was, hey, this is not my thing, this is really aggressive, this is overwhelming, I kept being sucked in. And for an album to do that, especially one that took such different ideas and mix them together in 1996, I can identify a lot of artists and sounds and albums that are derivative of this, but I honestly don't know of somebody who did something this gargantuan at this point in time. It's really, I think, an album that's ahead of its time.
I don't really see a Death from Above 1979 kicking off without this record. Like that really dancey, but also super aggressive and noisy, like post-punk, dance punk stuff. And all the stuff coming out nowadays, too. There's a bunch, like all that dancey art punk and post-punk that's been coming out the past few years definitely is indebted at some level.
That's true. Yeah, because like and the zany, eccentric vocals too. Like this album just has so many qualities that just hit so instantly for me on a musical level. Like Jake was saying about like picking up on things that are going before, and just being sucked back into it. I love the like hard panned wailing guitar solos that are actually mixed pretty quietly compared to the like just more rhythmic riffs and stuff. Like on the Hot Seat Can't Sit Down, there's like a right channel just wailing, noisy guitar. Beefheart's a good comparison too. Yeah, I actually, in preparation for this, I actually over-listened to this thing. I like listened to it too much because I just could not get enough. To the point where the last time I listened to it, I was like, okay, I gotta step away because I have almost ruined this thing like by listening to it so much. But it's just so easy to get into.
To get in the nitty gritty, yes, this album is wild and insane, and I can't pinpoint where I've heard sounds like this. I think it loses
Here comes the bad take.
Yeah, it loses its wow factor 5 listens for every album. I really went ham, as Brian was saying, really went ham. It loses its wow factor. Around third listen, I was like, what's driving me about loving this album is kind of taking away from it, because it's like, yeah, the screechy vocals, the plucky, rhythmic, dissonant guitars are cool and impressive, but what shocked me first listen kind of gets old upon like fourth listen, and it's especially for the vocals. They never get annoying. They're actually like some of the best parts. I love when it gets all shrieky and nasally. It's hilarious. I just get a big smile on my face. But it's also like, Brian, reminds me of our Naked City critique where, is there going to be a crazy sax moment in the middle of this? Yeah, there it is. So is there going to be a crazy dissonant guitar shriek? Oh, there it is. It gets a little predictable after a while.
I think they do switch it up with like 2 slower cuts. Like I think Strung and Beekeeper Maxim come to mind as 2 of the like slower in quotes cuts. Yeah, they're still very noisy. Those tracks don't necessarily hit as hard for me, but I feel like they're very necessary before because like right after Beekeeper's Maxim, we get like an incredible 5-track run with Jacked Up Jerk and 70 Kilogram Man, which is maybe my favorite song.
Best song, yeah.
I don't know. The last 2 songs are amazing too. I Am a Crack Machine is like just a noise rock showcase. Like maybe one of my favorite rock songs that in that noisy vein that I've ever heard. It's just so insane and like it's pummeling but still like very I get not to sound like pretentious, like they're like artfully mixed and like arranged. Yeah, I don't know.
My favorite song on the record.
I think it's the boldest, honestly, because they're not really going for anything other than pure shock and awe, but in a way that seems super substantive.
So what do we all think of the lyrics? Because I think that's something that, from what I'm gathering, doesn't get brought up a lot. It's mostly about the sounds of this album.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I'm not going to call them vague, but I don't really think anything's being sung about. I think they're just being ridiculous, or they're trying to just mix random things. Like, I couldn't tell you what 70 Kilogram Man's about. I couldn't tell you what Pussyfootin's about. I couldn't tell you what any of these songs are about. And maybe they're not about anything, and I'm just a schmuck. But that kind of takes it away from me, because with something this artsy or this dissonant, or like, I feel like they're trying to say something, and maybe they're not. Maybe I'm the one being goofed. So what did you all think of those?
No, I don't really think they're trying to say shit, really. And that's the thing. I don't think they need to. Like, I don't know who Vincent is, but like, I hope he makes it to that party. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's my favorite. That's my favorite song on the record, actually, is Vincent Come On Down, because it's 2.5 minutes. Short, it's sweet. It has that old, like, classic, like, rock and roll style of song structure going on, like 50s rock and roll or like a punk tune. And it's just, I don't know. I am drawn a lot to just the simple ragers, and I think that is definitely one of them on this record.
I get what you're saying, Chaz, that if you're looking for something like a narrative, something cohesive even within a song to tie it together conceptually, you're not going to get that here. I guess the reason it works for me is because Tim Taylor, the vocalist, he presents himself so just crazily that I don't feel like I would expect anything coherent to come from him. The words paint an emotional canvas and a feeling more than anything that has this kind of like underlying sinister vibe. Like he's someone you want to party with, but you don't want to know that well, you know? Mm-hmm. And I love the persona that comes through, and part of that's in the vocal performance, and part of that is in kind of the crazed, disconnected lyrics. So it's definitely did well enough there for me. Not to redirect from the lyrics too much, but real quick, something that Jake mentioned a bit ago that I want to run with real quick is, Jake, you mentioned overproduced and underproduced in the same sentence to describe this record, and somehow it is simultaneously both. Which is another unique part of it, because I feel like the drums and the bass have this very roomy early '90s underground rock post-hardcore sound, like June mentioned, the Jesus Lizard. But then the guitars and vocals sound futuristic. And that's what takes it to be really ahead of its time. The guitar tones being used are so sleek at times, so electronic at times, that like 90s rock wasn't really doing that yet. There's bleeps and bloops in there that just you didn't really hear in rock music in the mid 90s. And so those elements smashed together is part of what makes this so unique and makes it hard to pin down what the production style really is, but that's what then becomes so uniquely Brainiac.
I think you can kind of sum it up like we've been trying to come up with a word or a short way of summarizing their sound, and I think I am a cracked machine. Just
It's
like
like
a
a
machine, but
mission
there's
statement.
something
Yeah, yeah.
wrong.
Uh-huh.
There's something. It is bugged out. It is, the wires are not quite connecting, and there is some static electricity coursing through whatever equipment was used to create this thing.
It's like a kid's toy that's like slowly running out of batteries. Like I had
Demented
my son
Furby.
when he was when my son was a baby, he had this like Jam with Elmo guitar that had like this button and Jam with Elmo, and you couldn't turn it off. But then when the batteries would die, it would sound demonic. Jam with Elmo.
Play sludge metal with Elmo.
Yeah. So I think we should mention, not to get a little sad here, but I think it's a shame that this was their last album, when I think they really found their sound, but then like Death in the Band is always puts things to a screaching halt. Which
Dude, that's
really
so bad. That happened with Acid Bath too. Another
Yes,
one of
it
my favorite
fucking
bands have been
sucks.
shown by the show. So are their first? They had like 2 more before this, I think. Tom?
Are they any
there other bands
similar?
like this?
Are they any similar to this, or
This is their third LP. They also put out 2 EPs. Their last EP in 1997, Electroshock for President, kind of shows what they would have become. It's almost a more industrial direction, which I love. I love that EP. I highly recommend it. Their 1994 album, that one that came out before Hissing Prigs, Bonsai Superstar, is also really good. It's probably even more experimental and a little bit wilder. But I like Hissing Prigs better because it's just a little bit more focused. They take the intensity and the energy and just funnel it a little bit better. But I really think that all of their stuff is worth checking out.
I
They
think
did a
it's-
lot in an incredibly short amount of time.
I think it's safe to say that they really found the sound though here, because it feels like a well-crafted, as distant as it is, as crazy as it is, it feels well-crafted. Like they've spent months honing in on this sound, and to just see that stop short, it always sucks.
Super sad. Yeah.
Yeah. I could talk about this one for a long time, but I feel like maybe we've covered a lot of ground unless anyone else has anything to say. But this was actually, I'm not really like, we have a lot of people here. I'm trying to talk to everyone. Like, this was fantastic. It's one of the best records that have ever been shown on the show. It maybe is even my favorite at this point with the benefit of hindsight right now.
Wow.
Any album you've heard from the show.
Kiss up.
Yeah, no, I think it is. I think because like with the thing about this gotta be real quick. I don't want to take up too much time talking about this, but like the thing about music is like it really takes a long time, I think personally, to land on what you feel about an album. So some stuff that we've listened to that was super mind blowing to me has just fallen off a little bit. Like I think of the 2 albums that I've loved the most would be like Embracism and No Borders Here, and they've kind of like fallen down for me a little bit. Just with time, it just happens. It just happens.
Love that they're all
there's no two
June
ways about
records.
it.
They're never my records. When something lands with Brian from me, it stays. It stays every time.
Sometimes you really, sometimes you really, really love something on first impact, and as time goes on, you just sort of, it goes off a little bit. The reverse is true too. There have been things, on the show that I've heard that I wasn't so hot on that I totally rebounded on. Like The Walking is the biggest example. But this was fantastic. I thought this was great. So I think if no one else has anything to add, I thought this was great. I'd go with like a strong 9. I thought this was super fantastic.
9.
I loved it.
God damn. Decent 7. I love you, Tom. This was good. I liked it. Like I said, I think the craze factor and the hype around it kind of grew off me to where I was just like, this is some solid, wacky punk from the 90s. But I think it really stands to show that this is a really solidly original sound that I wish they could have explored more. It's definitely worth listening to because the vocal performance alone sold me on why this needs to be listened to by people, because it's nothing like the closest I could think of is Gene Ween screeching on the debut. That's the only thing I could even think of comes close to this. And yeah, so it was good. I liked it,
I'm going to go decent 8. Decent 8. Great record. Very fun record. A record that I need to hear while driving that I haven't yet, but I need to, just like the Jesus Lizard, I got to turn it way up and just blast it while driving at some point.
Jake, what about you?
Strong 8.
All right. I picked this one because it's a personal favorite. I've been obsessed with it for years, so I have to go 10. I know that it's
I would
probably
agree.
expected, but it's become one of my all-time favorites, so that's why I picked it.
I just realized we should be scoring out of 100.
No,
that's
I
right.
can't even begin to describe how I'm going to do that. No, thank you.
I'd go with like a 9. Dude, I would go like 96 or 97. Yeah, 97. I think
75. 75.
So the album that I chose is Os Afro-Sambas de Baden y Vinicius by Baden Powell and Vinícius de Moraes. This is a collaborative album of samba music from 1966 out of Brazil. I can't pretend to know everything there is to know about Brazilian music and history there and samba in general. I do know that I love plenty of Tropicalia music and artists of that general scene. And you know, we've talked about Gal Costa before, who I absolutely adore. And this record from 1966, I think it might just be my favorite record of 1966. It's one of those albums that I listen to, and every time I listen to it, I think, my God, how well arranged, how well produced, how well performed, how well written everything is here. This is an absolutely beautiful, gorgeous collection of tracks with some of the best background vocals you'll ever hear in pretty much anything ever. I really love this record. Like a lot. I would put it above, I mean, like I said, 1966, that's Revolver. That's
Blonde on Blonde.
That's Blonde on Blonde. That's
this
Pet
take
Sounds.
Is melting my PC right now. What is happening?
And I would put this right up there with them, or for me personally, a bit above it, because
honestly,
this thing is just like, to me, this is just like some of the most beautiful music that I've ever heard. But I'll leave my ranting and raving for another time, a few minutes, and I'll let you all take the reins.
I'd like to kick this thing off. This is amazing. This is a great album. As far as the Brazilian music we've listened to, we've only listened to 2, and it's Gal Costa's albums. I personally go more with the Tropicalia. While I do love this, something about Brazilian music that's psychedelic, fast, loud, has percussion, has trumpets in it, just brings my blood to a boil and gets me raging.
There's definitely still fusion going on here, but not to the degree that Gal Costa was fusing.
This is
I think
night and day. This is chill. This is vibes. We vibe in. We took some hash. We're just kind of like we're mellowing out. Kind of
mysterious.
We're swaying back and forth. You know, a little bit of a.
It's a little mysterious, though. It's got a little bit of a nocturnal vibe at times, I think.
I love how 60s it sounds. This production is so fucking 60s, and I love it so much. I have one problem. And June, you're probably going to beat my ass for this. It's a little repetitive. Once you hear
I'll beat your ass for that.
Once you hear like the first 2 minutes, you've heard the rest of the song. There's like maybe one or twice where like a jam comes in, like a little flute solo. But like most of the tracks, we're just gonna repeat the same part for like 5 times. That's our song, and like that's it.
Go take a hike, you little shit.
Well,
but those things they repeat are great. I love the backup vocals, the melodies they have, how very mysterious, as June mentioned. It's awesome. So it's not a big deal that it repeats. I just wish a bridge was thrown in every now and then to keep things fresh, because I feel like they just kind of have this one idea and just use that idea multiple times. But it's a great idea, so I'm a little conflicted.
I really like what you said about the production there, because it almost does have like this romantic vibe to it, just with the while obviously it's the 60s, so we expect 60s production. It has kind of a nice veneer to it. It feels a bit dusty, and intentionally so. I really enjoyed the sound of this record, and I've noticed, Chaz, I think you've been on a couple of albums now that maybe like you're looking for a little bit more. But what I've liked about both these albums that we've listened to is that they're short. And while they seem to kind of do the same shtick over and over again in their songwriting. What they also do is they don't make the album go on too long, so it's really accessible. I put this thing on a few times and was able to just listen to it and enjoy the entire experience start to finish, and really, really love the sound.
You're
palette
absolutely
and the
right.
compositions.
You're absolutely right. That's a great point, because every album, besides Brian's, is like a breeze. A fucking breeze. And this one especially. I cannot believe I turn it on and it's off. It's amazing. It's absolutely stunning.
I agree. I had that observation too, that it moves very quickly. You know, it's like 33 minutes or something. So it definitely doesn't overstay its welcome. I understand your point, Chaz, where it kind of feels like it's going through the same ideas within a song. But I really appreciate that despite it being a short album and despite there only being I don't recall offhand maybe like 7 or 8 tracks.
Yeah.
It's each song track by track still really establishes an identity. The dynamic flow of this record is spot on. Starts kind of slow, starts kind of mysterious, and then things just bust in, and it's this like celebratory vibe. But the more ballad-esque tracks, the more down-tempo ones that come in that are sprinkled throughout the album really help to space it out, and also create like a physical space for what you're listening to. And that comes back to the production you all were talking about. I almost felt like this had kind of like a Phil Spector wall of sound production, but like dialed back a bit and reverbed. I love the reverb on this. It just creates this sense of space. It's this kind of like long, almost tunneled reverb especially when the vocals come in and there's this kind of chorus, it just helps them linger there. And I think that adds to, I already said this word once, but June, you mentioned that there's kind of a mysterious vibe to the album. And I really like that too. It's there in the arrangements, it's there in the production. One thing I'll note also is I just really like this style of music for the percussion. The percussion approach, I listen to a lot of rock music, and it's always a person behind a drum kit, right? How much can you do with 4 limbs? Well, you can never do as much with 4 limbs as you can with several people who have auxiliary percussion instruments, adding a lot of color and texture to the sound. That's all over this album, and that's really like samba and bossa nova and a lot of those styles anyway. But that's all over the place here, and I just think that adds so much flair to a record like this. So I really, really enjoyed this one. June, I'm not quite where you're at, where I'm ready to put it at a battle with other 1966 classics, but I understand why you're at that point, because this is an album you can truly just get lost in and love every minute of it. And then when it's over, you're like, oh, that's it? I'll just start it again. Like, that's a rare thing to be able to find.
You know, we have a thing on the show where June will give things the car listen. She kind of already alluded to that. And it's science. It's this type of pseudoscience where, for some reason, when she blasts it in the car,
I would call it
that drives it over the edge. Pun intentional. But this one, it's like the road trip album to beat all road trip albums. I drive a lot for my work, and so listening to this on the road is like the perfect setting. Like just the horizon coming above, and you hear like the yes, more. God damn it.
You know what I also noticed about this record, or this might be an entirely personal thing because it's kind of ephemeral and not cemented in reality, but I kind of feel like I felt when I was a little kid watching like an old 40s, 50s, 60s animated Disney movie where it kind of felt magical and like wondrous, and I don't know, like there's a lot of color, and something about this album feels mysterious and nocturnal, but at the same time it feels like, I don't know, it feels like Fantasia to a certain extent with the just emotions and atmospheres that are happening. And again, that's not really like a critique,
the mysterious
found in reality, but it's there.
I love that. I love this metaphor though, because the mysterious vibe of the sound, I think, does kind of parlay itself very nicely to something that was from that era of Disney animation that probably got pulled from the shelf from being a bit too risque or overtly racist since then. Like that probably is the theme song or the soundtrack to something like that.
Okay.
Oh no, here comes Brian.
I hated it. It was awful. No. I love that, an album like this really speaks for itself. Like I think all the qualities that you all kind of prescribed, cut in the right word. All the qualities that you all have kind of said it has.
Take this prescription. You are a mysterious 60s album. Take this 2 times a day.
I think it's true. I think that's all that's true. And there's some kind of truth to June's metaphor as well. I don't know. It's just so quality. It kind of does the talking for itself. Like you could listen to it and kind of pick up like Tom was saying, like the really awesome drums, which is like the big selling point of this record, right? Is that it's a samba and like Afro-fusion, right? These like African drum rhythms. Which
that's where a lot of Brazilian music comes from. Was when everybody, and if you look at the history of the world and of colonization and of slavery and of just what groups of people ended up where over the course of centuries, you have a lot of like Hispanic people, and then you have a lot of African people, and they're just blends. And then 300, 400, 500 years later, you have afro-sambas, and it's amazing.
It's like all this stuff out of our control that is like, obviously, I would describe it as super not poggers. Is like, at least like all this beautiful art has become like, I don't know, is not like the product of it, but I don't know. I'm just grateful this thing exists. And the thing about that fusion is it's so subtle. Like it's such a subtle and beautiful record too in its sound. You like the more you listen to it, the more you really see the embellishments here are very soft. They very like gently contribute to this atmosphere that they're creating as it goes along, not without skimping on, I feel like really memorable parts being created, right? Wow, the last 3 songs are just stunners. And you were right, the backup singers are massive to this album's success or like its enjoyment, because they just are so gorgeous. And I don't know if it's like the 60s recording quality, like just the nature of that's kind of helping that along.
There's something about backup vocals with a 60s production that you can only get in albums from the 60s. It's like, it's such a contained sound, and it's great. It's great.
It's also just like contained on this album, just the quality of the singers, and I don't know where they're placed and just where everything is placed. I don't know if it's meticulously arranged. I don't necessarily get that feel, but it definitely feels like, the jigsaw pieces are just falling perfect. It's like a puzzle is arranging itself, so to speak. I don't know. I thought it was super fantastic. That's all I got to say about it, to be honest. I think everything else has been said. I thought it was awesome.
I'm going to go with a light 8. Awesome. My only big complaint really is the songwriting. I just wish there was more flourishes every now and then to keep things fresh. But it's a breeze. It's really a nitpick at this point because it's so quality. Love the vocals, love the backup vocals, love the instrumentation, love the flutes. The flutes sound great on this. And the acoustic guitar subtle plucking in the back on a few tracks is also kick-ass. So I'm going to go with the light 8.
Who wants to take the reins next? Chaz, you've spared yourself from my disappointments, barely.
I'm doing it. Strong 8. I like a strong 8. I think it's awesome.
Okay.
I'm going strong 8 as well.
Going strong 8 as well.
Oh,
dang!
I'll go with a 96 on this record.
I forgot we're doing
96.
That bit. An 82. I'm going to go an 82 on this album.
88.
It's an 88. It feels like an 88 to me. It's not quite 89, but 88. It's a strong 88.
I would not say 89. That feels like pushing it, over this. Seems kind of big is all.
So, oh boy. The album I've picked is the classic, A Picture of Finn Farting by Renard. So, Dump Truck, here we go. Renard is...
Finn's dump trunk.
Actually, surprisingly, a prolific figure in the hardcore EDM scene, especially in the breakcore and happy hardcore, bringing in like this new era of in like the 2010s of like a YouTube era sound. They also kind of pioneered the ragacore, and what is that? Well, what this all is just thumping drums, samples, and like fast, pounding, visceral, head-banging EDM. It's basically what this is, but there's a lot.
That's a really generous.
Yeah.
But
I would agree that it is fast.
with a lot of
It is
genres, like
certainly-
there's like a lot of details to like differ, like what makes this genre, all that. So that's like the sound. This album in particular is surprisingly some of that, but it's actually like a lot of chiptune covers or originals, spliced in with these interesting like spoken word bits. It's very Adventure Time themed, obviously, from the cover and the title. The story is Renard went to a con that Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, was attending. He asked him to draw a picture and said, Pendleton, give me 3 words to describe what the sound of this album I'm working on is going to be. And he rattled off some like silly words, and Renard took that and ran with it. I found this album way back in the day in high school, sophomore year. June was there in the discovering of this album. We were at SAA. It was like this kind of summer camp at our hometown college where...
I have no recollection at all.
Do you remember attending SAA? Do you remember that?
I remember Summer Arts Academy. I
Okay.
do not remember a picture of Fenn farting.
We were all hanging out with different people because different people from out of state would come into this like summer camp, and I met this girl. Her name was Kat, and she was really into like this type of music and was showing it to me. And this was when I was like wanting to pick up on new sounds, and I was floored by it. And it really was like the perfect time to listen to music like this because it's fast, it's loud, it's catchy, it's thumping, it's weird. I was all about music like that. This was when I was really getting into Ween. It makes perfect sense. I wanted to pick this for our nostalgia albums because I was very nostalgic for this album. But when I re-listened to it, I was like, this is so fucking nuts that this needs to be just a regular discussed album. Like no theme attached to this one. We just need to discuss the insanity that is this. There's tons of other things I could talk about, how Renard is a very prolific figure in the furry community.
That was essential. I think the furry part was maybe the most essential thing to mention when we're talking about the music.
Yeah. So I know for a fact.
Necessary.
I know for a fact everybody's like nothing above a 5. I would be shocked if I get a 6 from anybody. Because this is
glint in Jake's eye just then.
Because
it really was. I think, did anyone else notice Jake just had like a little bit of a...
Because
I thought it was a tear.
I'll give my thoughts later on this, how I think about it, but there's a lot of aspects going against this album. The sampling used, some of the context of it, the sounds maybe. I find that there's actually some legitimate musical prowess to this that needs to be talked about that I actually really enjoy. But I'll save my thoughts for later. Shit on it, hate on it, love it, surprise me. I don't really care. I just thought this would be a great discussion because it's nothing the closest we've ever done anything like this for the show was Dorian Electra. And Brian, you scratched a musical fucking itch. I knew I had to go back to my childhood.
Yeah, it looks like it's developed into some sort of rash.
Yeah, I can't stop itching. I can't stop itching. So tell me, what do you guys think about Renard, A Picture of Finn Farting? Take me on your musical journey.
The word that I would use to describe this sound is overwhelming. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, although in this case, I'm not exactly sure if it's necessarily a good thing. For me, the production of the beats, which to me, the whole point of an album like this is it's all about that chaotic beat delivery. That's the energy of the whole sound. Everything else is just flourishes around that, cool samples here and there. But the songwriting is expressed through energy that's delivered to you by this wave, this wall of percussion. And that's where I think my biggest criticism of this album kind of comes into play. And that's just, I want thicker, fuller production on all the percussion across the board. And I think that it would be more engaging and dynamic if I had that. Without that, what I'm left is a lot of high end. And so everything gets kind of washy and sounds like it's all bleeding together, which I think underplays a lot of the good things that are going on and some of the electronic melodies that are being demonstrated on this album, specifically when it starts to get into kind of that like bitcore type of genre, when there's influence of that coming through. I really, really dig the sound there. So I wouldn't say that I really hated this overall. It's probably not one that I'm going to come back to. And I think with like a little bit more polish and cohesive song structuring. I think this actually could have been like a really, really great album. So I'm not hating it, but I'm definitely not in love.
I
Yeah,
should stand to mention that Renard has hundreds of like other monikers or like other band names and projects, like Vectroid levels of just so many projects. Been going on since like 2005. So long history of music being produced. Most of it self-produced. They now even have their own record label, like 2 actually, I think. So they've come a long way since the fin farting era of 2011. To give you
It's such a good point though, Jake. Like the potential of this thing, because like I don't hate this thing. Like, of course, it's a ridiculous pick. Like, but at the same time, like, there's probably a ton of stuff out there that's of similar quality, is from a similar cloth, right? And this is a sound that actually now is showing up in some underground pop music that people love. I mean, people love this shit so much. Like we were talking about, I don't know if we were recording, but like with 100 Gex is they're not really, I think, super far from this. I would even say to a degree they're like adjacent. Now, I think they're far greater, right? But I think stuff like this definitely influence where sounds like that are starting, are coming from, and we're starting to see be done in a way that is pretty fruitful to actually enjoying them.
I don't know. It's a very extremely online subgenre of music, a subculture of the internet. This is the kind of thing that I think everyone is peripherally aware that it exists, but we're maybe not all into it unless you are 14 and your friend group is into it, and in which case it's your childhood. And there's a lot of people now, like I think there's a lot of people growing up now, and that's why we're seeing it in some modern pop music, this kind of style. Yeah, people who grew up with stuff like this.
It's kind of awesome. It's a little bit incredible, but it's
also
a little bit
inspiring. Not that this is an inspiring record or a fantastic record or even an album that I like. I do appreciate the fact that this super online, nerdy, kind of dorky internet subgenre of electronic music has kind of blossomed into something that even, I don't know, outlets like Pitchfork or whatever are looking at and saying, hey, hold on a sec.
Yeah.
Hold on a sec. I mean, you can look at like bubblegum bass, which had its roots adjacent to or other than this type of music. But you can definitely look at bubblegum bass artists who also have little bits of this sound in there. And then you look at an artist as big as like Charlie XCX, taking that kind of, like, there's just a lot of, the tree has a lot of roots. And the fact that this strange little nugget of culture
there's
is one of those
tons
roots.
of these, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, this one in particular doesn't have...
Renard is like one of the biggest faces in that scene. It's like they're like the biggest, or one of the biggest, when you look at the whole umbrella of genres.
Kind of looking back to like maybe the origins, right? Like, maybe they were big at the beginning. And I do love things like, for example, like it's very much, well, like a decade ago, I probably would have been like, yeah, let's make 21 Guns an EDM song. Because it's kind of sick. Like, that part is kind of sick.
That melody,
people don't understand. This is my hill to die. People don't understand that that's actually a good Green Day song. No one has ever understood that, except the millions of people that like it. But anyway, I mean, there's
such a thing as a good Green Day song.
Oh, shots fired. I don't know. I haven't. That's the only Green Day song I know, actually. Anyway,
shots fired.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Talking about the sounds and how I can get into the sounds and the ideas and the general ethos of this record is one thing. Listening to the record and enjoying it is another, because that didn't really happen. It's just all right. I think it's super, super listenable. I really hate the parts where they're talking. That sucks. But they're like talking into their mic and it's super blown out, and I don't really feel like anything they say adds
I think
anything.
it's fine. I think it's
very goofy. I think maybe I don't know if it's aware of how goofy it is, and I'm not trying to like bully Renard from 10 years ago, but it's definitely very like not awesome. I didn't like it. So usually I would try to skip over the parts where they're talking, because like when they're making like the music, it's all right. You know what I mean? And I can definitely admire where it's coming from. Maybe more so now than I would have been able to, maybe like a year or two ago, when I would have maybe just been like, what is... But overall, like, I don't think it's some like I just don't love it. I just think it's okay. I think it's the era that it comes from, and what this type of music has maybe gone on or to become is vastly more interesting. But it is kind of, knowing that Renard is sort of at the center of this back then, and like when it was much, 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 much smaller, is I mean, that's pretty cool. But I think the context around the record is far more interesting than the music on it in this particular case. What do you think, Jake? Jake already talked. So Tom,
what do you think? I'm curious what you think.
Yeah.
Tom.
So first off, Jake texted me a few days ago, and he was like, "Have you watched Letterkenny?" And I was like, "Yeah, I love that show." And he's like, "This Renard album sounds like something that the Skids would tweak out and dance to when they're on one of their just like Jake's doing it now." So, and my description was going to be, this album sounds like if Nyan Cat ate every other YouTube meme and vomited. Like, that's just this colorful burst of what the hell is this? Was kind of my thought. And I honestly say that lovingly. I'm not saying that to trash on the thing. I agree that this feels very novelty to me, and that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of talent and thought that goes into it. It feels to me more like a fascinating cultural artifact than it does like a really strong album that I would want to come back and listen to. This doesn't even sound like the kind of album that it feels wrong for 5 people to be sitting around and intellectually discussing it. Like, it's just someone's personal pet project where they're having fun doing these crazy beats and mashing in these songs. And I respect just the adventurous, as someone who sits in his bedroom and records music, I appreciate the adventurousness of that spirit. And I feel bad coming in and trying to critique that from like an artistic or objective standpoint, But for me, it does kind of feel like novelty. I agree with Jake that I would like it if the beats were a little thicker and covered the full frequency range a bit more. I imagine that probably part of the reason they did that is because when you're working in all of these samples that you've pitch shifted and cut out the bass on the samples, it probably sounds a lot more out of place and doesn't blend with the rest of the music as well if you're not doing that with the entire frequency color of the song itself. But like, there were moments I really liked on here. I actually really liked the bit. What was it? Forget the name of the song. Something about Spam Pony.
Here at the Friend Gala? Yeah!
Yeah. And I liked the Snoop Dogg Drop It Like It's Hot sample. That track worked really well for me. The one, was it You Got Curves, She Got Curves, something like that.
Great song.
That one's actually the best song. That one's a jam for sure.
Yeah. So there are moments on here that I really liked, and I appreciate again that it doesn't overstay its welcome. We mentioned that earlier with the last 2 records. This is just a little over 30 minutes long, I think. Somewhere in that ballpark. And so it's a fun little experiment, but like, I don't really get much more out of that from it. So I would feel bad just like crapping on this album because its purpose, they're not setting out to make the next Sgt. Pepper, and nor should we all be, right? We're all just trying to have fun making art and whatever. And so I respect that, but at the same time, it's like not something that I'm overly into or that I'm gonna geek out about.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. Like, I thought that some of the chiptune moments on here were probably my favorite. In actuality, I was listening to this, and then the final track ended, and then a song came on, and I was thinking, wow, this is the best song on the album. And then I looked at SoundCloud, and I was like, oh, shit, auto-played, and it's something else. But yeah, like, and it was, the chiptune things are cool. I don't have a whole lot more to say about it, and I don't even feel like a lot to say about it is even warranted, as Tom said. Like, it's just a little bit of a project that in 2021, like I've mentioned, you can look back on this a decade later and think, this little niche was actually kind of influential in a way. Like these, they kind of, you can look at hyperpop and say, okay, this is one of the many roots there.
Okay, so taking it all in, I disagree with the production take, I disagree with the spoken word take.
I don't know if I would spoken word. I don't know if I'd throw.
Well, I don't know.
It's sort of. It's more like a.
or an intro. I don't know what else to call it. Spoken
It's an
word.
intro,
Yeah.
sort of.
My biggest critique is that I wish the samples weren't so on the nose. I think what would have made this more interesting if the sampling was more creative. But that does come from some of the, like, hearing this breakcore beat behind a Green Day song is fascinating. And hearing it behind Snoop Dogg is fantastic.
I think Renard's a little bit of a meme lord.
Absolutely.
I think a little bit.
Absolutely. But I love the drumming. I love the boom, boom, boom is awesome. And I'm not even saying that because I listened to this growing up. Listening to it now with a fresh coat of eyes, having heard it like decades now, I was like, yeah, I was like viscerally like head banging my head.
You really got to take in the music you listen to with your eyes. Like if you just really.
I love the spoken word parts. It gives it so much character. Like I feel like I'm sitting next to them while they're making this, and I just kind of like leaning back, watching them fiddle around with whatever program they were using when they were making this, and they turn to me and just go, "Hey, listen to this." They'll play it. That was a Stevie Wonder cover, and then they just go right back to it. And I'm just like that was a Stevie Wonder cover. I'm just like, just kind of fascinated by the process. I think there's some legit musical merit here, though. The ending track is my favorite song. Not just because that's the best sample used, and it fits, and it's the only time second time we're utilizing the Adventure Time theme, because DJ put that record on, that's my song, that's my shit, best song. But seeing how Renard is a huge figure in the furry community, and how they identify now, that song and those lyrics probably were very personal to them when they were making that song. So I think in that context, it's a very powerful, and hearing the boo, boo, boo behind it too, it almost kind of tears me up. Like I kind of get like, fuck, I feel it. I feel the fucking emotion behind these stupid EDM bass beats. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just me, but honestly, like I love this fucking thing. It's so Chazcore. And I should be having an EDM beat behind me while I talk about how much I love this stupid fucking record.
You gotta throw it in. Edit it in. It won't be completely obnoxious at all. Make it really quiet and hard pan it.
Yeah.
Like someone's gonna be freaking out, and then when this part comes, they'll be like, oh, okay.
Of other Renard stuff, there was 3 albums I listened to a lot of theirs growing up. It was this one, Rainbow Blastronaut, and Full Jackass Techno, I think it's called.
Rainbow Blastronaut. That's actually a sick album.
Those two are longer and more obnoxious. I think this is the perfect album for the sound, the sampling, the style, and I love the chiptune. The chiptune part's my favorite as well, because you see the album cover, you see the titles, you see the genre tags, and you're expecting, She Got Curves or Pony Spam the whole time. But no, there's actually like every now and then. Most of it is chiptune, and they're great.
Oh. Dude, just had a brain blast moment. So there's this guy who makes, I swear to God, this ties in. There's this guy who plays these Dark Souls videos, and it's like how to Dark Souls, and he'll take you through like different areas in the game. I think the second to last track or the third to last track on here, that's the song he plays at the end of his videos. That burp, 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 burp. And that song actually is kind of cool. Like, because it's just this weird little sonic experience.
That's my least favorite part. I knew you'd fucking like that, you weirdo.
It goes on way too long, but it's kind of like, I love the like, well, that's the thing, is like one of the things about the record that's like I actually was able to enjoy is like just the ridiculous nature of it all. Not to, to just say it has no artistic merit. Like, I don't think that's true, really. But like, the ridiculous energy that comes through is, to me, like endearing. Like that's the most endearing thing about the record, especially on that song. Because if I had made that song, I would have pulled like June or someone into my room and be like, "Listen, this is heat," and I played it. And
what would have made hilarious. What I would have appreciated more is more Adventure Time samples to fit with the concept, and less on the note. Wow, the NWA cover sample, amazing. Keep it in. The Justin Bieber sample, get it out. Why is this here? Although I appreciate that it's like teen pop Justin Bieber, like where we could appreciate that you weren't a douchebag yet. You were just kind of annoying, like a little annoying, and that was that. But the best part of me for the album, besides the last track, is the "fuck you bitch ass boys" that comes in and just chants like when I'm driving in the car and that part comes on, I like look to see, make sure no one's watching, and then I fucking headbang like radically. So it's no surprise that I love this thing, and it's a bit
Chaz.
it's a bit nostalgic, but when I hear that last track and I see the concept and I hear the music, I get it. I 100% get it. I'm not a grandpa about it. No boomer here. I'm 100% zoomer with it. So, Light 9, bitches! Light 9! Fuck
Jesus.
Light 9! I love this thing. Love it. Love it, love it. That is my spiel. That is my spiel.
50. Just a 50. Just right in the middle. Out of 10, actually. 50 out of 10.
49.
Yeah, if we were going velocities and music rating, I'd give this like an upper 50s. So somewhere in the, 5 range.
Okay.
You guys aren't going to sue us, right? Is this going to bite us? Or?
Jake, if you give this a 60, I'll scream. I'll fucking scream. I'll scream right now on this... on.
Don't scream. Please don't scream.
Don't
Your mic's a
scream.
little bit blown out.
I messaged Tom on this saying that I was velocities and music scores 57 to 59, so I'll just go with 58.
Okay. That's
You
respectable.
get a...
Right,
Yeah,
all
okay.
right.
There you go.
I'll take it.
That's much more pleasant than what we would have done. I'm kind
Honestly,
of glad.
honestly, this is a dub. This is a big W because I was expecting 1s across the board, maybe 2s, 3s if I was lucky.
Oh yeah, this is far
big
from the
dub,
worst
yeah.
thing you've ever shown.
Oh,
us.
yeah.
Though, I still think Watt Tyler is way better than this. So
I mean, I think Watt Tyler is... It's about the
better than
same.
this.
It's
See,
about the same.
Brian, I need a top 10 of your 5s. Good luck. Good fucking luck
Top
with that.
10 5s. This sounds like a lot of math, honestly. I don't really want to do
Like, of your 5 scores, I need a tier list of your 5
Is this
scores.
like, could you do this like, no, this is a dumb bit. Cut this part out. I don't want to continue with this thing I was endeavoring on. All right, let's move on. Next album. All right, so I picked the Indie-tronica record. We haven't really talked about this genre, honestly.
Yeah, no.
So it's a second album from Imogen Heap, who's most well known for the massive, absolutely massive, and at this point kind of meme song, Speak for Yourself. I'm sorry, Hide and Seek. The album is called Speak for
Fake
Yourself.
fan.
Chaz,
Fake fan.
edit that
No.
and make me sound smart.
Fake fan.
But yeah, so the song Hide and Seek is the What You Say song. And, it's kind of become a meme at this point. Like, it blew up with that SNL skit and has since gone on to be used. Artist behind this album, Imogen Heap, is a British singer-songwriter, and her first album is more of a, from what I understand, I've not heard it, is more of a piano-driven kind of, I would wager like a Fiona Apple kind of situation. It's more piano singer-songwriter driven. Not sure if the rock elements are there. This is a total sea change from the sound she was doing into more electronic elements and still keeping that pop sound as well. It's a very, very 2000 sound that I'm unfortunately not very familiar with. Tom, I know you're a little more familiar with like the Indie-tronic stuff. As far as I know, big smile on Jake.
It'd be Jake. Yeah. Because I was listening to this record because you chose it, and I was listening to this and I was thinking, oh yeah,
Is Jake?
this is something that would
Okay.
be reviewed on the Velocities and Music website circa 2013. Like this would be there.
It's
Sounds
Maybe
about
it
accurate.
was.
yeah.
Maybe it was.
Which one?
We actually reviewed this very, very early on, and it totally described like your description of that era of sound spot on, and it just makes me feel really old. So that's where I'm at. I just feel
Oh,
ancient.
sorry, buddy.
I think it was her next album, Ellipse, that we reviewed because it came out in like
We did.
2010, like when we were first
Yeah,
starting.
we did. Yeah, Ellipse is what we reviewed.
This is okay. Look, to be fair, I might get the lyrical motifs here wrong. This feels like a breakup album to me, very much so. It definitely is filled with love songs.
Yeah.
Some in the breakup vein. But to me, the most appealing thing about the whole album is three things kind of coming together wonderfully, which is this Indie-tronica sound, which I'm not like necessarily the biggest fan of. I kind of like, this is a genre that when I look at it, if I see a tag, I sort of raise my brows a little bit. I'm like, I don't know about this. I'm not necessarily sure how I'm going to feel about this. I've not loved the sounds that I have heard, but I thought those elements are super tasteful and wonderful. I think they're actually a big part of making me love the album because the way they're arranged sounds great. And don't know Imogen's first name. I didn't take the time to learn it because I'm a bad
That's her first
podcaster.
name.
Oh, is that her actual name? Imogen?
I don't know if it's Imogen or Imogen or I don't.
Oh, I might be
I have no
saying it
idea,
wrong
but
as
that's
well.
her
Yeah.
name, yeah.
That's her name. That's a sick name, dude. I thought this was like I didn't think that could be a name. Anyway,
Whoa.
she is a great singer. Is a fantastic singer. There are so many vocal moments on this thing that, are not only beautiful, but there are a few that are even like chill worthy to me, like just that are like, wow, that was like that one line where she's like, leave that to me. The way she says that always just, I stop what I'm doing. I'm totally enraptured by the sound and then the song. And lyrically, I think she really comes through with good, I guess like love songs and like breakup songs, but really her performances kind of sell it more than that. So those, I don't know. I was shocked at the quality of this thing. Moreover, shocked at how actually incredible the song Hide and Seek is. And the way that song is made and performed live is one of the most unique things I've seen just in music in general, with this glove and this specific software developed to play the song where she'll move her hand in certain ways and the motions are tied to effects within the software. It's really fantastic. Floored by the quality of this thing. This was a random rec I got from just like an online buddy, and I have listened to it so much, and when I re-listened to it for this, I was even more impressed with it. I don't want to keep rambling about it, but it's just such a gorgeous little love record with a sound that I'm not that familiar with, so maybe that helped it make a splash in my mind. Yeah, just great. Just really great, in my opinion.
Well, I really enjoy this album. I mentioned that we reviewed Ellipse on Velocities In Music as one of our first reviews, and I remember Tom and I being a little bit mixed on that. I was really I pronounce it Imogen. I have no idea as well if that's correct or not. Again, passing the baton on to pronunciation to you all. I'll go with your pronunciations. For me, this album is Imogen Heap's best album. When Ellipse came out a few years after this, it just didn't have it wasn't able to carry the weight, and that some of the songwriting fell flat. Whereas on this album, there are like several songs on here in addition to Hide and Seek that I just think are killer. Songs like Headlock, Loose Ends, obviously Hide and Seek, Clear the Area, Just for Now. There's just so many really, really high quality tracks here. But the other thing is that this album really tries out different genres and in different, tempos and energy levels in a different way than I think her other pieces of work had. And this is an album that I've continued to come back to since I first got into it when I was in college in the mid to late 2000s. And I really haven't gotten sick of it. I still listen to the song Hide and Seek on the regular, and I'm not ashamed of it. And I know it's been remixed. I know it's a meme right now, but like OG hipster here, like not that. It doesn't count. Like the original is where it's at. The original is good, and it's still worthy of any playlist that I make.
You know what Hide and Seek reminds me of a little bit, with the fact that it is basically just vocals, right? And is centered on the vocal melody and the effects. It kind of strikes me as a modern day Oh Superman by like Laurie Anderson. Now, I think Oh Superman is on an entirely different level. Like I completely adore that song, and Hide and Seek is great too, but there's kind of parallels there. Both are very minimal, very vocal led, very effects driven with the computerized kind of sound going on.
So Jake, this is one where you are far more evolved than I am on this, because if you recall Tom Hummer in 2005, I was all hard rock and anything with a guitar and some drums, and that's my roots, right? It took me a long time to really like start appreciating music like this, so revisiting this in 2021 was a real treat for me, because Hide and Seek, you're right, it has become a little bit overplayed, over recognized, but coming back to it now, it's like, damn, it's just a good song. And I think the fact that she arranged this entirely vocal-based song that really has no identifiable hook or structure. It's just kind of this big soliloquy with vocoder driving it. Like that is quite an accomplishment, because I don't think really, you mentioned Oh Superman, Laurie Anderson. That's a really good comparison. But yeah, nothing else in our modern age really achieves that like this does. Also, taking a step back and looking at it in the context of the rest of the album, it comes at the perfect time, because my one big complaint about this album is that I feel like there are some moments where it just steps on its own toes a little bit. It's around 49 minutes long. I do think that I would probably like it a little bit better in like the 40 to 42 minute range, just because for me, like, this is real nitpicky, but if you'll follow me here, I feel like really great albums can do one of two things. Well, first off, each song really needs to establish its own identity. And there's two ways that I think that can be done. Either it needs to have a really memorable, distinct melody, if we're talking like rock or pop, right? So albums like Radiohead's The Bends, or the first couple of Oasis albums, where all the songs sound more or less the same. They're not straying from home base very much, but each one still has a really identifiable melody that just grabs you. On the other hand, you have albums like the Beatles' White Album or Pixies' Doolittle, where none of the songs sound remotely the same, but because of that, they can still be not perfect, but still establish an identity. Where this album, the one thing I'll fault it on is I feel like there are several songs that I'm like, I just feel like she does this better on other tracks. And Jake, back in the Velocities in Music days, you and I always, if there was an album where we picked the same track picks, then it always was kind of a telling thing that there are just clearly weaker tracks that could be cut. And all of the songs that you picked are my track picks as well. Headlock, Hide and Seek, Clear the Area. For me, I'd add Daylight Robbery. You mentioned Just for Now. I really like Good Night and Go as well.
Yep, Good Night and Go is great.
For me, several of the other tracks were just kind of forgettable because either they didn't stick with me or I just felt like another song did it better. That being said, that's my big whiny critique of this album. But overall, like, I still put this on and really enjoy it. I think back in the day, I didn't appreciate her music as much because it was a little twinkly, a little pop. To me, what saves it though is the vocals and that kind of art pop, like calling back to Kate Bush and Bjork and even Enya. Like the soundscapes that are being presented here, I just appreciate a lot more today. And yeah, I really like this one.
I think the link does bite it a little bit. I do have some complaints. I think I enjoyed the other picks here more than my own pick, even though I still love this album. Yeah, I mean the link does bite it a little bit. I think the tracks that take more of a rock oriented direction are I really like them.
2000s. They're so 2000s.
Yeah, I know. I don't. That's not the thing that makes me dislike them. I just feel like they do kind of pale in comparison to, like, for example, the closer here. This really slow, plodding kind of art pop song that's mostly vocally driven. I just think the rock songs pale in comparison a little bit, but I still really love them. It's a very strange dichotomy because when I listen to this thing all the way through, I have no trouble. I just think it's a little bit long, but I really love it as a holistic piece. There definitely seems to be a narrative that's kind of guiding the songs towards the back half. But I can't quite place it. Like, that's why I was kind of struggling to label it a breakup record because there are breakup songs, but there's also a lot of, love songs and the order is not super particular. So yeah, I would agree with some of those critiques. Like, it's a little bit long in the tooth and some songs do kind of pale and compare it. Or I don't feel like she does. I don't feel like she outdoes herself on like the slower songs compared to the rock songs, but I do feel like the rock songs aren't as good just for different reasons. I think. So yeah.
She is a little bit long in the tooth, but I think it's just a testament to how good the melodies are on this record, is that when I was listening to this thing, every time a song came on, I was like, oh yeah, this one. And that is a good indicator where whenever every time a song comes on, you're like, oh yeah, I know the chorus to this song. I didn't forget it. It didn't go in one ear and out the other. It stayed in my brain for me to recognize it. And that happened with like basically every song here. Even if some pale at some level compared to others, or even if there are clear highlights.
A small gripe, I think.
It is. It's a bit of a smaller gripe for me than I think it is for a lot of the rest of you from what you've said. But yeah, like I was kind of impressed with how consistent this album was.
That's the thing too. I was just floored at the quality of this release, just because it's not really one you hear talked about in terms of like 2000s pop music. I mean, it's a little bit off the beaten path in that regard.
I disagree and agree with everybody's takes here for different reasons. One, I don't think there's highlights. I think it's a consistent listen. There's just a few tracks that are like supreme when you compare them to everybody else. But every track is like...
That's what we call a highlight.
No. That would mean that there are like some not so good song. Every song is quality of some degree. And there's like only 2 songs that I would even like say are like on another level. And that would be Hide and Seek and Clear the Area. My favorite songs by far. However, lyrically, Again, only 2 songs that even have any like merit to me, and that's Good Night and Go and Hide and Seek. Every other song, lyrically, don't remember a damn thing. I think that's the weakest thing about this album is the lyrics. I don't think she goes hard enough. I think we get such a gut punch of Hide and Seek and creepiness of Good Night and Go, and it's like, where's this on every other song on the album? I couldn't name a single lyric of, if you ask me right now, what are the lyrics in Just For Now? 5 times. Could not tell you a single word off that record. But the melodies, June, you're right, the melodies are strong. Like almost every track, strong. Headlock, Hide and Seek, Clear the Area, Daylight Robbery, Closing In, The Moment I Said It. Great, great, great melodies. It's long. It's too long. And I think that's because of a simple thing. There's like a 10-second, even 30-second on some tracks, like silent dip. And I don't know if that's for dramatic effect. It just brings the album to a halt every time it happens. Just
How
end the
long
track.
is this record for you? Because that doesn't sound. Is this on Spotify?
Like the moment I said it, there's like a 30-second, and there's still more to the track.
Yeah, there is.
And like Hide and Seek, it ends, and there's like a 10-second just silence. It's like, just end the track, move on. Why? It feels purposeful. So I feel like there's like a dramatic pause, like, because there's some depth here being said. I disagree with you, Tom. Hide and Seek comes in too early. She blows her load too fucking quick. That is such a powerful song about divorce that should have come in like track 10 should have been Hide and Seek. A great drive to the climax, and then we kind of settle down. It comes in too early, and every time it comes in, I'm like, I'm loving it. I think when the What You Say comes in, it's so cathartic, and not even for the meme. It's just because it's so powerfully gut punching. I wish they would have saved
As you
that.
really do have a way of like making things an innuendo that you don't even like know or doesn't even like click
Maybe
with
that
you
says
that
more
it is an
about you,
innuendo.
Brian, and June, how you have a dirty ass mind, and I can't do anything for you, my friend. I can't do anything
Yeah,
for
get
you.
out of the gutter. Come on. Chaz hasn't said anything even remotely innuendo-esque, all right? Just you need to clean up. Get good with God or something.
So I stewed with this one a lot. I actually really, it's not mind-blowing to me. I just really like it because the best thing about it for me is the vocal performance and the production. The production on this album is fantastic. Best of all the picks. Best production. Love.
Agree with that.
Baden has been
I
my
go
pick.
Brainiac.
Sit down. Nah, it's this Indie-tronica album from 2005 that kills it.
So great. Chaz, I don't know where you're at based on where your descriptions went, but I landed on a 79 for this one. And I will say I've cooled on this album over the years because I used to be a huge Imogen Heap fan. But like Tom, I started off really loving more electronic and poppy stuff. And then through Velocities in Music, I was conditioned to like more visceral and hard rocking stuff, thanks to my friend Tom. So I think that now I have to weigh it all out. And so I think Imogen Heap has slid down my list, but it's a great album. I really do think this is a really high quality record, and 79's my score.
I'm going to go a strong 7. Same thing. I think what brings it down for me hard is the lyrics. I wish she just killed, like, I wish she went into depth like she does on Good Night and Go and Hide and Seek. I think those lyrically are strong as hell, and it never gets to that level on any of the other tracks. But production-wise, vocal-wise, and melody-wise, they're all very consistent with just a few, like, next-level tracks.
Yeah. I'd agree with that critique about the lyrics, to be honest with you. Like, I love some of the vocal moments and stuff, but I'm not like super pulled in by what she's saying, even though it is clear, like it's really emotionally charged. And I wouldn't call the lyrics memorable, but I do think they're good. You know what I mean? That's kind of what I would go with. I do like, especially on the closing track, there are definitely some really memorable and emotional moments. So yeah, I would actually go with like I guess I'll stick with the 100 thing. I go with like an 83 or an 80. Like an 83. That sounds perfect for this album. I think it's really good. I mean, I am still shocked by the quality. I don't know why that is either, because like quality albums just exist, like across, their notoriety has almost no bearing on that. In the scope of just me listening to it, do I like it, right? But I don't know. It was just such an unexpected recommendation that's just remained quality. I had to pick it for Tom because I wasn't sure if he'd heard it. So I was like, let me see if I can dig. Because Brainiac kind of felt like that to me. It was just something that was like, boom, left field. Like,
Yeah, I honestly I know that I'd heard tracks from this album and clearly Hide and Seek, of course, but I don't know if I'd sat and really listened to this in detail before. So I appreciate the opportunity to. I am also going to give this a strong 7. If we're doing velocities and music scoring, I'd probably give it like a 78 or 79. So I'm right with Chaz, but I think for completely different reasons. I feel like for me, I mean, my tastes, lyrics are very rarely the make or break for me. I totally understand and respect the fact that, they are for other people. I just I don't soak in lyrics as much. I more just kind of soak in the vibe. And for me, the lyrics didn't bother me, but I feel like I'm the only person here that really just felt like they were clearly weaker tracks. Like June, Chaz, Brian, you all mentioned you felt like it was really even. And for me, June, the experience you had of a song comes on and you're like, oh yeah, this one. There were a few that a song would come on and I'd be like, what's this one? I've listened to this 4 times already, but it just, certain tracks didn't stick with me. So obviously that's just going to change from person to person, but I did have that experience with it.
I'm going to go with an 82. It's just just under Brian's level of enjoyment, but I thought it was a really, really
pretty
good
much
album.
the same amount of enjoyment, really.
Yeah, it was pretty great record.
That was
pretty
my goal, because I feel like the show is about Brainiac. That's really what my feeling, not specifically Brainiac, but the idea that it's what's another, or Christina, those are my 2 favorites so far. Oh God, dude, I just never would have gotten to these if they hadn't been thrown at my, here's what we're listening to for
that is why the show kicks ass, because
that's literally the point of the show. It doesn't exist for Renard, but it does exist. But yeah, that was it was a super easy week, even with Renard talking. The beautiful thing about Renard, I guess, was because it wasn't a whole lot to soak in. You know what I mean? And it was certainly not bad. Really, to be honest, it certainly wasn't bad.
Brainiac was great, but I mean, if you're putting that above Dog-Faced Hermans,
no, not even close.
I mean, that's kind of a tough call.
It was
that
almost
that
when I heard the I was like, dude, Dog-Faced Hermits did it 3 years before you.
Well, they're totally different. We're talking about a no wave kind of band.
They're very similar. I got strong Hum of Life vibes from the sound of this. That was another comparison I could make. Was Hum of Life.
It has the energy level. Dogface, it's a tough call between Brainiac and Dogface, to be honest. If we're talking Hum of Life, that's a super tough call. I think Brainiac is. I mean, they're about
a
as
strong
consistent.
9, dude. You were strong.
Yeah, but that Dogface Herman's album is fucking awesome too. It's really. Anyway, that's a tough call.
Tom came through with a surprise guest from Jake, but Tom,
that was sick having Jake on.
Thanks
that was
for
awesome.
coming on the show, Tom. Always, we will have you on consistently now. It's set in stone. You are now part of
this your second job.
yeah.
Tell the wife to wait. We need to talk about music.
This has been Unwarranted Music Opinions with our favorite guest reviewers, Tom and Jake.
Oh, thanks for having us. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Yeah, that was great.
Great. I really enjoyed being
I don't know if
here.
that's Tom or Jake. They sound kind of the same, but
they were pretty busy, and Jake had to go pretty quick. But it was great having them, and we'll have them again.
Imagine having families.
Several months from now, probably.
Yeah, half a year.
Next episode is a sequel episode where we talk about artists that we have already discussed at least once before. And what are we doing, Brian?
I'm doing clipping. We're gonna go back to clipping. It's been so long. It's been since the first episode, and I've had this one lined up for a while. We're gonna do There Existed an Addiction to Blood. It's one of my favorite records of theirs. It came out last year. Oh man, what the fuck? 2 years ago? Stop. It was 2 years ago. Disgusting. Anyway, we're doing that one. We're doing that one. It's actually it's actually I almost wanted to make us do both of the Halloween albums as a double album, but they weren't released that way, so we'll do There Existed an Addiction to Blood. Clippings foray into horrorcore.
So Brian wanted us to go back to another season 1 favorite. We are going to do one of my favorite artists of all time that I love to talk about on the show, the chicken-loving, bucket-wearing man himself who can noodle on guitar like no other, Buckethead. But since we're on an ambient kick, and Brian really wanted to do this ambient album that I think is a little overrated, and I just don't think it's worth talking about. So I'm going to pick an album that'll make, I think, for a much better discussion, and is a bit of a black sheep in his discography. So I'm very curious to see what you guys will think about his 2007, I believe, release, Acoustic Shards, which is basically just an archival recording of just Buckethead and an acoustic guitar, and that's it. Like Adrian Lenker vibes, just nothing but acoustic noodling, and it's some of the best fucking acoustic guitar playing you'll ever hear.
Gotta say, vocals came in, didn't know Buckethead was a woman, assumedly a woman. I mean, very up there vocals. I think, Chaz, this is just an Adrian Lenker record. Wait, you just picked an Adrian.
Damn.
You just picked a Bizkiss.
Damn it.
What the fuck, dude?
So this will make for a great discussion. It's not one that's brought up a lot when it comes to like great Buckethead albums, but I think it's one that needs to be talked about for many reasons.
This actually looks like a pog pick, honestly.
So we'll see, but that's what I got going.
June has decided to go with the 1970 release Jewels of Thought by Pharaoh Sanders.
This has been a More Into Music Opinions. I'm June Lindberg. I was here with Brian Courtney.
And
Chaz Jenkins.
Hey.
And we'll see you next time.
Let's harmonize. Wow, your mic sounds fucked up when you get loud. Holy shit.